My parents weren't rich people by any stretch, but they were hard workers. My dad was a mechanic who ran his own little garage, and my mom worked as a receptionist at a dentist's office. They both passed within a few years of each other, and when the time came to deal with what they left behind, the difference in what my sister and I inherited hit me like a ton of bricks. She got a $100,000 insurance payout that had been set up specifically in her name, and I got what was described as personal property that turned out to be a rundown storage shed behind my parents' old house. Now, to be clear, I wasn't expecting some huge windfall. My parents lived modestly, and I knew most of their money went toward bills, medical costs, and just keeping things afloat. But when my sister came bouncing into the lawyer's office smiling ear to ear after hearing she was walking away with $100,000, and I was left with a rusty shed full of God knows what, I felt like the universe was laughing in my face. She didn't rub it in exactly, but I could tell she was relieved and maybe even a little smug. She bought herself a new car within a week. I couldn't even bring myself to go look at the shed for almost a month. When I finally did, it was worse than I imagined. The place smelled like mildew and old motor oil. The roof sagged, and there were spider webs in every corner. Half the stuff in there was broken or water damaged. Old lawn chairs, busted radios, a cracked toolbox. At first, I felt like my parents had left me a chore, not an inheritance. I stood there with my hands on my hips thinking about how unfair it was. My sister was setting up a savings account and planning trips, while I was knee-deep in junk. But then, as I started pulling things out piece by piece, I found a trunk shoved away in the back. It was heavy, metal, and had one of those old combination locks. It took me almost an hour to get it open, and when I did, my whole perspective shifted. Inside were stacks of old notebooks, envelopes, and photo albums. At first I thought it was just sentimental stuff, but when I opened one envelope, I found bonds and savings certificates, all neatly organized. Some were small, $50 here, 100 there, but there were dozens of them. Then I found another envelope filled with letters from my dad to my mom from when they were first dating. I sat on the dusty floor flipping through everything. I realized my dad had saved every single handwritten note my mom gave him, even grocery lists where she'd written little hearts. There were pictures of them from their first apartment, birthday cards they'd exchanged, and a handwritten timeline my dad had put together of their early years together. It wasn't just money I had found. It was their story, preserved in a way my sister probably would have rolled her eyes at. As I kept digging, I came across a ledger with my dad's handwriting. At first it looked like boring garage notes, but then I realized it was records of small amounts of money he'd put aside over decades. He must have bought those savings bonds little by little whenever he could afford it. The total value wasn't anywhere near what my sister got, but it was still in the tens of thousands once I added it all up later. But what got me wasn't the money. It was realizing my dad had quietly built this little nest egg, never bragging about it, never mentioning it to anyone, almost like he was leaving me a puzzle to solve. When I told my sister about what I found, she just shrugged. She said she was happy for me, but joked that it was so dad to hide things in weird places. I don't think she really got it. She saw her inheritance as practical, while mine felt like a gift of memory and meaning. I spent weeks going through everything in that trunk, scanning photos, transcribing letters, and piecing together who my parents were before they were just mom and dad. I realized things about them I never knew. My dad once dreamed of traveling cross-country on a motorcycle. My mom wrote about wanting to start her own small bakery, but never had the chance. They had struggles, doubts, and hopes I'd never even considered. Reading their words made them feel alive again, and it gave me a kind of peace I didn't know I needed. The money from the bonds helped me pay off some debts and fix up my house, but what really changed me was what I found in those letters and journals. It made me want to honor their memory in ways that went beyond cash. I started cooking some of my mom's old recipes again. I took my dad's favorite old wrench from the shed and had it cleaned up and mounted on my wall. Every time I look at it, I think about how he worked his whole life with his hands to give us what he could. My sister and I don't talk about the inheritance much anymore. She's still doing her own thing with her money, and I don't begrudge her for it. But sometimes I think she missed out. She got numbers in a bank account, and I got the soul of who our parents were. I used to think I got the short end of the stick, but now I honestly believe I came out ahead in ways I can't even measure. I guess I just needed to get this off my chest, because I've been carrying both the hurt and the gratitude around for months now. At first, all I could see was unfairness. Now, I see a story of two different kinds of gifts. And in the end, mine turned out to be the one that changed me the most.